We got to keep all of our salaries. I earned enough for this house in half a year, but times are hard today.
You can still earn well, even in tough times.
We use an assembly line approach now, just copy and paste, building each house the same way to minimize work and management. In 11 years, I only once had a person whose stomach ulcers burst and he was just vomiting blood and everything was covered in blood. A bad loan is when, for example, you buy a car on credit and it doesn't put anything in your pocket unless it's, I don't know, a truck that earns money and pays itself off.
This is Wojtek Kaczmarczyk from the ROBOTY channel, and today we've arrived in England. It's the kind of weather that makes you want to hit a bar, but we're not going to talk about bars, we're going to talk about success. The success of Poles, actually one Pole who used to work on an assembly line packing sandwiches, and today he makes really big money. With me is Dawid, welcome.
Hello, Wojtek.
I mentioned how you got started, so can you expand on that? How did you end up here in England and how did it all begin?
In short, we came here to earn money for the wedding. I had £300 and a friend promised a house, work and everything we needed. Many immigrants here will relate to me. There was none of that. Instead of a house, there was just one big chicken coop, over 20 rooms, disgusting, dirty bathrooms, bed bugs, sticky kitchens, fridges locked up, with chains so people wouldn't steal each other's food. The 21st century, the West, and at first, what I found in the West terrified me. We had to break out of that. We found work. I just went from factory to factory, since two people can't survive long on £300. And at one place I said that we were the best packers, right? The best picker-packers you'd ever meet, and those managers laughed at us so much that they said, "Hey, come to work on Monday." I said, "We can do all the overtime you have." They asked, "How much overtime can you do?" I can do all of it.
All of it. And when was that anyway?
That was, listen, in April of 2012.
Okay, in just a moment we'll get to work and you think about whether you have any friends who once went to England and whose story started out like Dawid's, and think about whether they did something about it or if they're still in the same place they were before. Let's move on.
Let's go.
Let's get to work. What are you doing now that you're not working on the sandwich assembly line?
Well, the story might sound a bit unbelievable, but by working hard, saving money, subletting the house, subletting rooms, we just started investing in real estate. Thanks to the tools available in this country, like companies and financing, we built a portfolio of over 50 rental houses. These are houses that are rented either as a whole or by rooms. And in addition to that, there are a number of companies. There are also 30 companies where I run businesses that support the growth of my real estate portfolio, but not only that.
As you said, it's hard to believe that packing sandwiches on a production line and having £300 could buy even one house, so I'm going to ask you a lot of questions.
That's right.
Throughout this episode, to see how it looks. This place is a mess. Is this one of your houses that you're renovating right now?
That's right. This is a house, mind you, that until recently was inhabited by people. In the UK, we have extremely weak competition. Every fourth house for rent, I repeat for rent, is unfit to live in. Some statistics show up to 12 people are interested in one house.
That's right.
So people simply have no choice but to live in awful dumps. And every year the housing shortage grows.
These apartments and houses will likely become more expensive.
And that's what's happening.
So let's go inside to see what the renovation of the house looks like. So you bought it, right?
Yes.
To put it in order.
Yes.
You bought a house
This is the house you bought, yeah.
where people used to live and you bought it from them, right?
I bought it from the owner, who used to rent rooms to them.
Okay. Did he sell it because he no longer wanted to rent it out?
Yes, he just didn't want to put a single pound into it. The house needed a complete renovation. There are rats living in the house and it's generally a mess. The opportunity is that if I buy a nice house, there's no profit in it for me.
Okay.
I won't be able to lower that price. If I buy a house in that condition, I can negotiate a lower price since the owner doesn't want to handle renovations. He wants to sell that house, so he'll significantly lower the price. So for example, this house has 7 rooms and 7 bathrooms. That's a very big cash flow on properties like that. And it was bought for £170,000. The same house, exactly on that street, sells for between £240,000 and £260,000, so there's already a price difference of £70,000 to £90,000, which will be in my pocket. Why in my pocket? Because in England, there's something called a remortgage, which means we get a new mortgage, and the bank comes to me, I finish the renovation here, and they say, "All right, Mr. Wojtek, this house is now worth £260,000, I can pay you that amount." 75% of that value.
Wait, let's organize this from the beginning. So you pay that 70,000 from a loan, right? Some kind of loan, or not yet?
You can buy either with cash
Okay.
or with a loan. If it's with a loan, then it's a 25% down payment.
All right, 25% down payment, 170, and when does the bank come to see the house?
When I invite them,
Before finishing the renovation or after?
after finishing,
After finishing, so you have a budget for renovating this house and you put in 30,000, so you spend 200,000 on it, you can sell it for 240 because that's what others cost. So what, you invite, why do you need the bank?
I invite him because I don't want to get rid of it. Then the bank says this house will be worth 260,000, right? You spent 200 on it, but he doesn't care.
No.
You can spend 100 million on it, right? He sees that the price ceiling in this area right now is, let's say, 260,000 because that's how much similar houses have sold for. So let's say he values it at 260,000 and he says, you'll get 75% of that, so I'll transfer 195,000 to your account minus the notary fee.
No.
So about 2,000 pounds and minus the mortgage broker's fee.
Does the bank transfer this money to you?
Yes.
Just because you own this house?
No, but that's how he makes money from it.
What kind?
Well, the kind that now I'll have a mortgage with the bank.
Okay.
And I'll be making payments to the bank.
So you're getting a loan using the house you aren't selling, right?
That's right.
All right.
Selling real estate to yourself is like a perpetual motion machine. In the UK, where once you've gathered capital, if you negotiate purchase prices well, which is very important, it's crucial, then you can pull out that capital, keep the property, and there's a lot of cash out from rent, which you put into the next one. And that's how it turned out.
And how did you come up with that? Because I don't think everyone knows about it and does it, right? Or...
Half the people here are focused on renting. They're not interested. They live for Friday for the weekend. They live off credit cards. So it's just a different mindset.
Okay.
People in the 21st century just aren't interested and don't want to.
If you watch this episode until the end, you might change your mindset. Or if you're actually working here in England on an assembly line or somewhere in Ireland, you may want to adjust what you're doing. So watch until the end, and I'll gladly watch with you to see what this house looks like.
People still live here, right? Because I think 3 rooms are still rented out.
Uh-huh.
Out of those 7, and at least they wash up after themselves, but still no quality, right? So that's probably not it. Let's look at the ceiling. Let's look at that fan, right? It's all filthy.
Okay, so let's say we have 7 rooms here, right? You're saying?
Yes.
You spend 170, let's say 200,000 on this house. You get 75% of that from the bank, and you can invest that money in buying more houses.
That's right, that's right. And for rent for a room with a bathroom like that, it's between 130 and 160 pounds here in the north of England. In Manchester, for example, it's even more expensive.
160 pounds for
A week?
a week.
Per week, times 52 weeks, you do the math.
For 1 room?
For 1 room, with a house like this, if we take financing where we pay only the interest without the principal, because that's an option you can choose, which is actually great, people say, but your house will never be yours. So, I was buying houses in 2014 between 60 and 80,000 pounds. 75% of that value was a loan, and those houses today are worth. The worst one is 160, the best one is almost 300, so that best one, if I sold it, I could pay off the loans on 3 or 4 other properties after 11 years.
It's definitely interesting, isn't it?
Let's check another room and see what the guys are doing upstairs. Alright, so now we're upstairs. Here we have the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th room, all with bathrooms, of course, in different sizes. And here is one of those rooms. It's almost finished. So listen, it's not the Taj Mahal, but anyone who knows England knows that everything is just magnolia. Some cheap old ugly carpet. We've added some color. And here, there are some slat panels. It will be nicely furnished, so there will be a bed, a wardrobe, a dresser, and a desk.
And does each room have its own bathroom?
Each room has its own bathroom, which is important.
Are the gentlemen who work for you contractors or employees?
No, we always hire companies with whom we agree on a so-called fixed price, meaning the cost of materials is included in the price.
Oh,
Labor and the deadline. Many companies that work with us simply know that the faster they finish one project, the sooner they can make money on the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th one.
that's right.
And then time matters to them, right?
You already have X of those houses lined up, right?
Yes, that's right.
But I'm curious about that because we just said that someone is currently living in that room, right?
That's right.
And it's a total mess, right?
Because those people didn't want to move out,
Uh-huh.
we gave them the option. Listen, you can find someone else, or you'll have to live through the renovation.
Okay.
And like I told you, there's a shortage of houses, apartments, and rooms in this country, so they preferred to stay just to keep that room, even if they have to live through the renovation.
Okay, so I think we'll go to the next place now. There's nothing more to see here. The next room is similar. I'm still in shock because honestly, we flew in from Poland just yesterday. This is the first house we're seeing in this kind of condition and under renovation. And I couldn't imagine it could look like this. You know, it's hard enough to do renovations at home when you have to live in one room and renovate the other, but here it's a business, and that's how it works.
And it moves very fast.
Here I see that the investment next door, along with window replacements and some kind of extension, so such a renovation probably costs a lot more money here.
Well, definitely, but this is a country of clueless people. When I perform in English for English people, I often make jokes about them. They love dark humor, and for example, I talk about this. Look, a gutter, listen, somewhere it's leaking, running down this wall, down this brickwork, it's already green and all along this height. Inside the house there will be a huge mold and nobody does anything about it. Yes, these people have no idea where it comes from. The mold just appears.
They installed nice new plastic windows and built an extension, but the gutter over there still leaks?
Yes, it will keep leaking and mold will form, inside will be renovated and they'll call a shaman to fix it.
So you're basically their healer?
I'm here, listen, like Moses.
Okay.
I'm leading them out of this backwater, performing in English. In Polish, I don't need to explain this, but people still approach me. Dawid, I have 7 houses. I did what you said. I took the moss out of the gutter. Water doesn't run down my wall anymore. I don't have mold anymore.
These are simple tips you charge for, since you also run workshops for people, not just focus on properties, right?
Yes, we do 3-day workshops where we give a lot of substance, a lot of tips. A simple example, you paid stamp duty, which is 5%, let's say, of the property's value, and you don't even know that you can get it back. How do you get it back? We say, look, the house was empty for 2 years, you can apply for it, it costs £200,000 and you already have £10,000, right? A simple tip people don't know, you have money in your account, you don't know about taxes. People come to me, Dawid, my accountant calculated the tax. Listen, you have a capital gains tax allowance, you do it together, you sold. If you're flipping, you shouldn't owe that much tax, right? They already have 5,000 in their pocket, so there are countless tips, but some are crucial, like what not to do or buy to avoid making changes to the property. For example, you can't lease the roof to an external company that will now have that roof leased for 30 years because the bank will say, damn, I don't want this house anymore, you're not the sole owner, and you have some tenant there, I won't give you that loan. And people make mistakes, they don't know about this, about their own properties. And then they have a problem selling them because they can't remove those panels and that person who is leasing the roof from them anymore.
Okay, and one simple tip we're talking about. Remove the moss from the gutter so it doesn't leak down your wall.
And so there won't be mold inside.
Oh, and I almost forgot, dear viewers, in the meantime, if you're watching this video on your TVs, laptops, phones, wherever, remember to leave a like and write a comment to help the reach of this video because it would mean a lot to us. And the second topic, which is also very important, if you own a business in Poland or England, are Polish and want to showcase something cool you're doing, to feature it on the Do ROBOTY channel, email me. I read and reply to every message. Or reach out on Instagram or TikTok and we'll record something cool. Let's keep going.
Okay, I see this is already finished. The house was also in terrible condition. Now it's all white, clean and neat.
We covered your journey from packing sandwiches and assembly line work to now owning, what is it now, 50 apartments and houses?
More than 50.
More than 50 houses.
Plus, I'm currently building my own apartment block for rent, 20 apartments in the city center.
So kind of like being a developer as well?
But that's for me to rent out.
To rent out?
Yes.
So your own apartment building for rent?
Apartments.
Apartments without a mortgage. Crazy. That's why I want to return to the beginning. So the stage between packing sandwiches and having £300 or even just 150 in your pocket and getting into real estate, buying your first property. It's hard to imagine that from those sandwiches and earnings. How much did you make per hour then?
At that time, city rates were about £7 an hour.
Okay, it still doesn't add up to me that you were making £7, had 100 in your pocket and bought a house.
Not right away, not right away. First, we lived in those rooms, we found that job, lots of overtime, we worked practically every day.
Right.
One day off, and we had to start accumulating that capital quickly, so we made an Excel spreadsheet in a notebook. I calculated how much I needed for the first house.
And how much did you need?
Back then, the first house cost $80,000, and I only needed $8,000 for the down payment since it was for me and required just 10%, not 25%. And that's how...
And a loan?
A loan, yes.
Here.
10% down payment.
Uh-huh.
That was one thing. The second thing, we sublet rooms in a rented house. I sublet 3 rooms, and those 3 rooms covered the rent I paid to the landlord, meaning the owner of the house. They paid off his mortgage, He was still making money on it. I was making money on it. I had no living costs. It covered my electricity, water, gas, the fee for garbage collection, everything. And I still had money left over, so all of our salaries stayed in our accounts. I earned enough for this house in half a year.
Let's see.
Let's see what changes were made to this investor's house and how value was added. So this house used to have 2 bedrooms. Here we have a bathroom like this. For the British, this is already considered high-end. When it comes to renting, yes, it's nice, clean, there's no carpet, and look, pay attention, there's a single faucet, which might be strange for you. Normally there would be 2 taps here, one for hot and one for cold water. There's a nice bathtub, and we have a glass panel here that separates us. There's no curtain that gets moldy and falls apart. This was the so-called master bedroom. It was the biggest bedroom, and in the case of this bedroom, we created a hallway here. Walking down this hallway, we added stairs here and made an extra bedroom in the attic, right? Now this property has 3 bedrooms and that's real value for the bank. The bank, when appraising this house, will now compare it to houses that have been sold, not 2-bedroom ones anymore, but now to 3-bedroom houses. So the value of this property immediately increased significantly.
You mentioned this isn't your house, but the investors.
Yes, this is the investor's house.
So this is another one of your businesses.
Yes, this is another one of our businesses. Today we work with about 700 investors, and each year one of my companies sources properties for them. We have a full-time team in various northern English cities. They find these properties for investors. The second company renovates these houses. The third manages the rentals, and my 4th company does their accounting.
Okay.
My 5th company handles their loans. We also offer workshops for those who want to learn this thoroughly themselves.
Okay, so someone didn't even have to be in this house because you take care of all of this.
That's right.
And you could honestly say he treats it like an ATM.
That's right, exactly. And these people simply get what's called a proposal package, where we have all the data collected from the local market, which means how much similar properties are rented for in the area. Usually people are told the average rent is this much, but we try to rent it out for much more, right? And then we have an extra bonus, and these people get this. Here's a map showing whether there's a flood risk. In these river areas, there was water, but on this higher ground, it has never reached here. Who lives in the area? What the energy efficiency of the house is.
Is this the one house you can buy for yourself?
Yes, here we have the layout of the plan. So what the layout is? Yes, how it looked before. Of course, so it was 2 bedrooms, schools, photos, how this house looked. So there are really a lot of pages here, and a comparison how much such houses are selling for. So you already know here houses in this area sold for 200,000, similar ones, this one for 200, this one for 180, right?
In the case, for example, we're in this house, the viewers see it here, they see this number. How much do you earn from your work around this one house?
Yes.
How do you make money?
So for finding the property, we will charge a one-time fee of 4,200 to 5,000 pounds, depending on the ROI. Yes? Return on investment, ROI, ranges between 8 and 12%. And if we use financial leverage, then from 15, get this, up to 30%, right?
Okay, all right.
Today, when we have high borrowing costs, when borrowing costs were low, I did it myself. I had even from 30 to 50%. Often I got my money back thanks to remortgaging within a year or 2.
Okay.
Everything I invested, yes, but today we have bad times. Even in tough times, you can still earn well.
Okay, so you make 4,000 from finding this house, and the next step is that you renovate it.
Yes, and for handling it, say, a project manager to oversee it, another 4,000.
Okay.
For property management, it's 10% of the gross amount, right? The accounting for the whole company is about £100 per month, correct? So whether you have 1, 3 or 4 houses, it's about £100 a month.
And you just bring in more of your employees,
Yes.
not investing your own money in this house?
No. No, we just provide the whole service, the full support, and I also use these services myself. When I buy houses, my last 13 or 14 properties, I haven't even seen them with my own eyes. I just have a line with the address in Excel.
It's good that I came here. At least Dawid will see these houses. So are we going to see one more?
We'll see the last, final product, what the house looks like when it's completely finished. Because here, for example, I see there's no railing, which is necessary for safety. There I see I need to make some corrections. So with my 11 years of experience, I immediately know what still needs to be finished here.
All right, let's go. Viewers, I wanted to show you something. Everything looks good outside, but when I opened the cabinet, it was different inside. Let me know in the comments if you'd accept this standard in a rented apartment. Nice outside, but inside? In Poland, for example, I'm asking, is this normal for you? Here, it's just normal.
Yes, so it will just disappear. This house, when it's put on the market, it will literally disappear. There will be a line of people waiting to see it. And it definitely won't make them decide against this property after seeing other ugly, dirty properties, and they'll really be grateful that they can live here.
Thank you very much.
That's right.
Will it be rented as is, or will there be furniture?
No, no furniture, an empty property.
Something like that.
This is a house rented entirely for a couple or a family. And the difference is that those houses cost more money to buy, to renovate, and to remodel. They have regulations similar to hotels regarding safety, and such a property is less time consuming. Here, a person moves in and lives for a few years.
And you don't have to worry about it anymore.
Okay.
And you just have to remember one thing, to raise his rent once a year, because the rent keeps going up.
This house is clearly unlike the last two, especially with its large kitchen, right?
Yeah, we have quite a nice kitchen here. There's still space for a table, for a fridge, so it's spacious, which means you already have a different type of property and a very big garden, right? Look how nice the grass is here in one spot.
And for example, things like, I don't know, if the tenant lives here later, rents this house, and I don't know, the gutter is leaking or water spills out, who is responsible for all that?
So things like external stuff, the gutter, the roof, or pipes, we are responsible for that. Internal things like if they damage the doors or walls, if they neglect the garden, they're responsible.
Just out of curiosity, because I once did an episode about real estate in Spain, in Poland, and now we're in England. When you buy a house like this and rent it out, what rights does the tenant have and what rights do you have?
So, for 11 years I've never had to evict anyone through the courts personally, but that's because we educate the tenants and tell them that it's not worth it for them, because people often don't know their rights and don't know what might happen to them.
Okay, and for example, like I heard off camera in the previous apartment, that someone had a cat, that they were really messy, making the apartment dirty, and you want to get rid of them. Can you just get rid of them like that?
Well, we have to, show that what they're doing amounts to property damage, and at that point they're breaking the terms of the contract, so they have to move out.
Okay, so it's possible, let's say,
Eviction.
eviction. Okay, and from your own experience, since you have so many houses, have you had situations more than once where someone damaged or trashed one of your houses? So you come in, you've rented the apartment for years, and now every year you have to renovate because they ruin it?
In 11 years, I only once had a tenant whose stomach ulcers burst, and he just vomited blood, and everything was covered in blood.
Okay.
And that was a situation I only had once. Another time, once in my life, I had a break-in and those people destroyed the door. And it happened once. We're operating on a very large scale, so statistics kick in. Once, someone died in the bed and began decomposing, leaking fluid so badly that the entire room had to be stripped. And once in my life, I bought a house that had previously been used for growing drugs, which was shut down, and there was an attempt to set it on fire. I suspect maybe some people the previous owner owed money to, okay?
Okay.
I can tell you things like that.
So, different situations happen, but you say it's just once, so it's not like that, because in Poland too, you buy lots of apartments, rent them out, tenants wreck them, and whatever rent you earn every 2 years you have to...
But that's on a scale, over 50 houses times 11 years, so that's basically nothing.
Exactly, that's why I say that after all it still sounds like a safe investment, but I also wanted to ask, who rents these apartments from you? Does it matter if they're Polish or not?
No, that doesn't matter to us. We just have criteria. We have a filter that the tenant has to go through. It's not just about having money. We check your credit history, just like a bank does for a loan, to see if you have debts and pay on time. We ask you for a bank statement to know if you have money, or for example, if you don't go to the casino and blow everything, right? Things like that. It's a very structured process, unimaginable in Poland.
Yes.
Yes, we request references from your previous landlords, such as the condition in which you left their house. And only after you make it through this very fine filter, you're approved to rent from us.
And I wanted to summarize this once again, that in the end, because people will probably accuse you of this or not, that these are not your houses in the end, that you say you have 50, but all of them have mortgages.
Yes, they all have mortgages. Well, I had a 25% down payment in them, but as I mentioned, some houses I bought for 60, 80,000 in 2014. Today they are worth between 160 and 300. The one worth 300,000 I bought for 65. Now, it could pay off several property loans for me.
But why don't you do that? Why don't you, for example, sell 5 now to pay off 15 and have a portfolio of your own houses?
Because if I sell 5, those 5 won't increase in value anymore. Those 5 won't be bringing in rent for me anymore.
Okay.
To my account. Since I'm only paying interest, cash flow stays high. For example, the one I mentioned brings in about £20,000 for me. If I sell it, I won't get that £20,000 in my account each year anymore, right?
But you won't have to pay those interest payments anymore.
But why should I care that I'm paying those interest payments if I have that money in my account? So the difference between good and bad debt is that bad debt is, for example, when you buy a car on credit. And it generates costs for you and loses value, right? It doesn't put anything in your pocket. Unless it's, I don't know, a truck, a semi that earns money and pays itself off. A good loan is, for example, you bought a combine harvester, you harvest a cornfield, it pays for itself because you no longer pay to rent such a combine, and on top of that, you provide services for others. That combine earns enough to pay off the loan, cover repairs, and leave you with a surplus. That's a good loan, that's the difference. So a property that has very low loan payments, because for example we only pay interest and the interest rates are also lower than in Poland, generates so much rent for me that I use that rent to buy more houses. So why should I get rid of all of them now?
Actually, you explained it to me well just now. I think you guys also got what it's about. All right, so now I'm asking, where is your limit, the ceiling you want to reach? I don't know, usually about 100 to 150 apartments since you keep reinvesting, so as long as the money is there, you'll just keep buying more houses. Will there be a stage where, after all, you'll pay off some part so that they become your so-called assets?
You know what, we're moving more into development projects now. I just want to grow, I want to inspire to do more ambitious things. Well, houses, they increased my portfolio, but I just got bored with that, right? I went into converting pubs into apartments, so I have, for example, a pub in my portfolio that I turned into 6 apartments. I did a development project, we built an estate of detached houses, which we sold, but again, I got rid of them, right? So now we're building an apartment block, we're building it with cash, without any loans.
So it's already yours.
Mine, and after it's built, I'll go to the bank and say, let's say it's worth, I'll ask for 75% of its value, because I want to build another apartment building like this. And that's the direction I'd like to keep growing in, not so much for the money anymore, but more for the adventure, for creating. I'm more inspired by the act of creating and building value than by the money itself.
That's why we're so drawn to each other, because I'm a similar person. Let's say I can wear the same clothes for a week or just use what's in the closet. You don't have to buy
a million things.
Right, not spending millions of zlotys on countless things, but reinvesting and putting that money to work. And if you want to hear even more about real estate, because there was a lot of inspiration in this episode and in this bathroom, because we're still in the bathroom, that's the summary of this episode. Watch your channel.
Dawid Property.
Pinned link in the description. Take advantage of the courses and the knowledge they offer. I sincerely thank you both for the invitation to England and for letting us tour these developments. Get to work, we're answering the phones.
They're calling from the bank right now.
Leave a like on this episode and leave a comment saying whether you've ever been to England.